Good afternoon. We are back with Questions with David. The question today is a riddle and a solution. What is it that everybody has but nobody likes? What is it that everybody uses but most don't understand? What is it that everybody needs but nobody wants? Well, we are talking about something that everybody knows and you may be feeling right now after this riddle. Of course, I'm referring to anger. I have been dealing with this subject all this past week in some form or another. It seems everyone that has come to my practice in the past week has been focused on this subject in some way. Either with the courts, the family, the kids, the TV set. This has been a prime focus for the whole week, so let's talk about it some. You may not realize it, but anger does not exist in the fashion that most people believe it does. I know I'm about to commit near blasphemy in this profession, but here goes. Anger, in fact, in my opinion, is not a primary emotion at all. It does not and cannot stand alone, nor can it be treated by itself. It actually has multiple supporting characters. We often believe we see anger in its entirety, but fail to know it intimately. Most of the time we only see 20% of the real issue, and society accepts that and gives it a label, calls it anger. So what about the other 80%? If you scored 20% on any test, you would have failed. But if you score 80%, you would be above average. So is it any wonder that knowing only 20% of the anger issue is really a failing endeavor? The 80% is the real key to treatment, but we often don't pay much attention to that. I wanted to bring an example of this theory to this discussion and immediately thought of a presentation I did in college on feelings and the Titanic. Everyone has heard of the Titanic and how it hit an iceberg and was destroyed, right? It was a big deal. They even made a movie about it. But did you know that the Titanic could have avoided its destruction if it had known the iceberg intimately? If it was only clear to them that the iceberg was only revealing 20% of its destructive capability. The Titanic reacted to that 20% and received a really failing grade. The ship indeed did see the iceberg, and multiple reasons have been documented as to why it hit the iceberg. The true story about the event was the ship actually missed most of what it could see. So what destroyed the Titanic? It was not the 20% it could see, but the 80% that it didn't or wouldn't see. No, they didn't know the iceberg intimately. Anger is much the same way. We see 20%, but we don't know it intimately. And that is what destroys us. We believe that anger just happens, and we have very little control of it. But what if we did? What if you knew it intimately? Would you avoid it? A Navy commander friend of mine years ago told me that if the Titanic had seen the 80%, the iceberg had been flipped, and the 80 was on top and the 20 underneath. Even the small rudder that it possessed with the big ship would have been able to avoid the iceberg. He said it would have seen the danger over a mile away, and it would have avoided the collision altogether. Anger is much the same way. Anger is like a sandwich. And the 20% we see, we could act like the bread. But it isn't the bread that makes the sandwich, is it? It's what's inside. Anger is actually defined by me in 3 pieces. The outward expression of an inward feeling manifested by some act or action. Everyone can see the bread. The outward expression, piece 1. The physical action, piece 2. Those are quite apparent. You yelled, then kicked the cat, slammed the door. However, they don't know how or what to name the sandwich. Do you remember the old Wendy's commercial and the coin phrase, "Where's the beef?" Wendy's was making a point. When the outside is not more visible than the inside, do you really know what kind of sandwich you have? The same can be said for anger. Where's the beef? If anger is 20% and the tip of the iceberg, what is the other 80? It must be the beef, the inward feeling. It must be what makes up the sandwich. Things like rejection, abandonment, failure, guilt, shame, and hurt. If you were able to flip your iceberg of anger and recognize and accept the 80%, what would happen to the 20%? Would anger destroy you? Would the outward expression change? Would the physical act or action change? When you look at anger, just remember the Titanic. If you only look at the 20%, the 80% will destroy you. It's not what you can see that destroys you. It's what you don't see or won't see. Don't go down like the Titanic, wondering, where's the beef?